All right, welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 27th of August, 2025, and this is the SIG Cloud Provider office hours. SIG Cloud Provider is a sub-project of Kubernetes SIGs, and as such, we follow their community guidelines, which can basically be summarized as please treat everyone as you would expect to be treated, or explicitly so, please be kind to each other. And if you would like to talk, please raise your hand and I will call on you. So at the beginning of our meetings, we like to do sub-project updates. So I will open the floor up for anyone who would like to give a sub-project update at this time.
Feel like I put something in the agenda that's sort of sub-project related, but I don't know
Yeah.
if anyone from the Crow Project wants to give an actual technical Crow Project update. That would be great. Um, but while we're, yes,
Yeah, I guess I can speak for
yeah,
Amin because we just spoke about this today, so I'm here also
wonderful.
on behalf of that. I think what you wrote here is pretty much on point, right? So at
Mhm.
this point, we are basically waiting for the next steps to be engaged on the SIG side, right? That we know what to do with the repo, with the org. I think there was an invitation from Amin into the Crow org so that the migration can start. So I think that's ongoing, but I don't think anything else has been initiated yet.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. And then did you have anything about Crow itself? Any high points or things you're excited about or things that are on your mind right now? I'd love to hear about it.
Sure. Yeah, I think currently what most people are waiting on is our adoption of apply sets, which we are heavily discussing. So we also invite everyone to join the Crow community call there if you want to get involved there deeper. Um, I think apply sets are interesting if you come from the kubectl world because I think the cap has been discussed in that area as well. So yeah, feel free to take a look there. I'm sure that will be interesting. And then we also have another big one, which is dynamic change reconciliation. We call that watch set. I think this is like I don't know. I don't think it's like an established term yet, but basically it's our like take on dynamic watches of resources. So this would also be interesting for people who want to chime in there. Also heavily encouraged and wanted if you want to help us out there and just take a review or something. We'd be happy to have you both in the existing channels as well as on the existing issues and PRs.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, Jacob. Do you prefer Jacob or Jacob or Jakob?
I don't mind, man. I've been through it all, so
Okay.
whatever floats your boat.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, so I guess we'll move on to our agenda then. And Bridget, you've got the first topic following up on kind of what we're talking about here. So please take it away.
Awesome. So thank you, Elmiko, and thank you, Jacob. So we do have the request open. Thank you, Amin, for opening the request for the move. And if we scroll down to the bottom, we'll see that we got all of our tech leads approving, which is fantastic. Thank you. And the next step is for to actually put the repo into Kubernetes-SIG's organization. And Jacob did say that it looks like Amin is coordinating on the back end with the GitHub admins, and that's where we're at. So this is a process that takes some time. There's a bunch of work that will happen behind the scenes. Probably the most noticeable one will be for any contributors who had not yet gotten around to signing the Kubernetes CLA, they will need to do that. And if there's anyone who did contribute to Crow who doesn't end up signing the Kubernetes CLA, we'll have to name them in the notice file just to make note of that, since, you know, all of the exciting legal stuff that needs to happen. Um, but it will, of course, be easier if everyone does go. And I think most people who contribute to Crow also already have signed the Kubernetes CLA, but we're working through those details. And that will be exciting. But that's, anyway, it's approved. It just needs to finish all of these steps to actually be in place. And then we'll see that in place. That'll be great. And thank you for everyone who has taking steps to make that happen. In the meantime, just keep working in the Crow organization and in the Crow repo, and the Crow repo will just be picked up and moved over into Kubernetes-SIGs at some point. So, but there won't be any need for you to migrate any of your commits or anything. Okay, KubeCon SIG Cloud Provider update. Joel did me a
Before we
favor by
move on,
reminding. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I just wanted to see, like, I wanted to see if anybody else had questions or comments about the
Mhm,
Crow sub-project
mhm.
moving. And if not, I had a question.
Oh, great. Oh, Amin's here. Wonderful. Perfect timing, Amin.
Hey,
Okay, so
folks.
yeah, so if nobody else, if there's no questions about, if there's no questions from the community about the Crow subproject, migration and everything, one thing I wanted to bring up, and this isn't urgent, I don't think, because I was looking at the Crow project and it's very healthy in terms of maintainers right now and everything. But I want to make sure that once we get it migrated over and everything, that we follow the practice that we're doing with the cloud provider repos now, where we put the SIG leads into the owners files, just so that we make sure we have a good like backup in case there's a need for the SIG tech leads or activity from the SIG to like push a change into that repo. Like I said, I don't think this is a huge deal right now because the Crow repo is very well maintained and there's a lot of owners there. But this is something that we're trying to get better about doing because we have experienced situations in the past where bugs in CI and whatnot have needed to be fixed and we couldn't find an approver. So this is just kind of I think just best practice for the SIG at this point.
I think that's actually on the onboarding checklist. So I think that we'll do that as part of bringing everything in. I don't think that we'll have, I mean, that's not controversial. It's on the checklist. So I think that we will do that. But I know that before Amin joined, Jacob was saying something about you're working through like adding GitHub admins to the Crow Run org or something to help them. Can you give us more updates on what's going on with the move?
Yeah, so hey everyone. I pinged both Nabarun and Bobby Tables yesterday. Whoever like is first available um to to help us with the migration, I'll invite them over as admins and I'll let them just go and make the migration. If I don't get any reply, maybe by tomorrow, I'll also ping Nikita. I think she's an admin as well. So I'll make sure that I follow up with the admins on this topic. Yeah, we're super excited. This is really cool. Awesome step for the project, and yeah, looking forward to that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think I can kind of speak for the SIG when I say we're excited too. It seems like it's a tremendously exciting project, and I think it's cool to see it kind of become a Kubernetes sub project and everything. So yeah, definitely happy to see it happening. I mean,
Awesome.
okay, so if there's no other questions, kind of about the general Crow migration, I will pass it over to Bridget for the next topic. About the cloud provider update at KubeCon.
Wonderful. So we are on the agenda. We are hilariously in the very last time slot of the entire conference, which I think is kind of fun. We get to bring the conference to an exciting conclusion with the SIG Cloud Provider update. We'll be talking about, growing SIG Cloud Provider. And spoiler alert, I imagine Crow, as well as a lot of the other stuff around CSI, CNI, all sorts of things will probably be on the agenda. I put this on here kind of as a reminder to the folks that you see on this page that we need to start working on the talk, but also as a reminder to the community, when we start working on the talk, we will put the Google Slides into this meeting's, forthcoming notes. We'll be happy to take feedback and input from the community because the update isn't just about us, it's about what's going on in the community. So this will be something we'll work on together, but just letting you know that that's something that we need to get started on. And so again, as you're thinking, as community members, if you're thinking, what do we want to make sure that the community hears about in terms of our efforts? We are interested in your input. Any input now or thoughts or questions about the SIG Cloud Provider update for KubeCon? Right, we still have to think about format. We have 4 people on the talk right now. I think there's a total of 5 allowable. And I think standard conference talk ends up being really hard with that many people, but I bet we could do it as, panel style or rap battle or who knows what.
Rap
I was
battle is not
thinking,
the future. Go ahead, Amit.
sorry. I mean, I know a few of us will be in KubeCon this year. I think Bridget and Elmiko, I saw
Mhm,
you like in the talk in there.
mhm,
Um, I talked to Jacob yesterday. He said there are chances that he will be in KubeCon. I think I will be
mhm.
there as well. I was thinking maybe we can have a small meeting. I know they will be like the first day, the contributor summit. We might like meet on a
Yeah,
table and talk, like have all the team members meeting. So I'm really excited for KubeCon and can have all the folks gathered there if people can make it. So yeah, great.
I think that is an awesome point. Thank you, Amin. I know that we did do something at the SIG meet and greet last year. I believe Elmiko was repping us there. And I think Amin just mentioned the thing I have as my next bullet point, which is Maintainer Summit. If people haven't sorted out or looked at their calendars yet, remember Maintainer Summit is unfortunately on Sunday this year because that's how calendars work. And since the conference proper is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, therefore the pre-days, the co-located events are Monday, therefore Maintainer Summit is on Sunday. Oh. Um, but that means if you have not remembered and you've already thought, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to Maintainer Summit, make sure you sign up for it because it's always a little bit different. Remember, it used to be Kubernetes Contributor Summit, and that was run by the Kubernetes community, and that was a separate thing. Maintainer Summit, run by CNCF. You must be registered for KubeCon, and then you must meet the eligibility requirements for Maintainer Summit, and you must click on and like register for Maintainer Summit. I registered, and I'm waiting because it says we'll get back to you in 7 to 10 days. So yeah. And yeah, the link right there, you can probably just take the next bullet point and kind of slide it over to be under that because right there, or no, I mean, like, yeah, the one under it, it doesn't matter. Um, but yeah, make sure you register if you plan on being at Maintainer Summit. And then I bet we could do the same thing that Amin's talking about. Like we could have a SIG Cloud Provider, Crow, et cetera, community hanging out with each other at Maintainer Summit. One of the SIG meet and greet is great. Maintainer Summit is great. The nice thing about Maintainer Summit is there's those unconference components where we can suggest, hey, everyone who wants to talk about, managing their cloud resources in various ways, let's get together at Maintainer Summit in the unconference and just propose that. I don't know if you want to add more. I know you kind of were thinking along those lines, Amin, but if you want to add more to that, yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Bridget. I think the topic of cloud resource management is makes a lot of sense for this SIG, and maybe like we can extend the invitation to all the people that are interested into the care model and not only Crow as an orchestration engine, but all the
Yeah.
cool things that exist in the ecosystem, and including like both ASO, ACK, KCC, and Crossplane as well. I
Mhm.
don't know if there are like any other controllers there in CNCF that do the same thing, but yeah, I mean, maybe like Cluster API as well. I think they
Yeah.
also have some sort of intersection with this area too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Elmico has lots of insights there as well. I think is that get your cluster API and your cloud provider buddies together for one big party, Elmico?
Well, interestingly, you say that because I was doing some studying about Crow last week, and I was kind of just, I was looking at the patterns that are in the examples there and kind of some of the documentation, and I think it's interesting the transformations that take place and how the documentation talks about, okay, you could have like 2 different teams that are using a similar, resource group or whatever, and then they're able to configure it to go to, AWS or Azure or GCP or whatever. And I started to think about this from like the even one step out from that, yes, based on my cluster API kind of experience. And it's like, yeah, once you combine Crow with a cluster API management cluster, you can then even include like entire into your resource group or whatever, right? So you could say like, not only do I want to have, all these like deployment and service and monitoring and all these other things laid out, but you might underpin that by first having a cluster object created by a cluster API controller. And then, Crow would be able to make sure that like your deployments and all the other thing that goes on don't happen until that cluster is actually up and ready and everything. So like, yeah, I started to kind of talk about this with some colleagues at Red Hat and just, we were kind of saying, okay, well, what could you do if you had all these different kinds of things in your cluster, or you had some sort of topology that supported more of a, like a hub spoke kind of thing. And I think there's like a lot of really interesting crossovers there. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like casting the net a little wider, to get projects like Cluster API and some other, kind of like infrastructure related projects is probably like a really cool idea in the relationship to Crow.
I love it, Elmiko. And honestly, I'm glad that you brought the topic of hub and spoke. We have actually a very specific example for that. I just sent a link on the chat where like you can have this management cluster provision in other clusters and put in Argo CD in them. And I mean, I think in this example, we use in AWS providers, ACK, but you could imagine this could definitely be cluster API or any other abstraction or like a tool that people want to use. Um, so I'm super happy to if folks like wanna work on this, super happy to collaborate and maybe put more formal examples on how to use Pro and Cluster API and abstraction everything behind one graph and like one abstraction.
Yeah, I think the cluster API example is like really interesting from the perspective of like if you have a management cluster set up for cluster API, you eventually you essentially have a bunch of Kubernetes objects as custom resources in the cluster already for like making clusters, making, machines, making sets of machines and whatnot. And to me, when I was reading the Crow documentation and kind of looking through the examples and the code and whatnot, I was like, okay, this is like peanut butter plus chocolate. Like this is just a natural combination that happens. And like if you're running a management cluster and you have teams like application development teams, I think it can become very powerful to say, okay, we could have Crow running in this management cluster, and maybe in a future where Cluster API has really good support for like multiple clouds within a single management cluster, and then you could have a development team that says, okay, I've got an application stack here, I've got a resource group, I want to push it to Crow, and I want to use the configuration injection to make sure that I get like one deployment on AWS, one deployment on Azure, and one deployment on GCP or something, right? And it's like, yeah, then I think that it becomes even more powerful at that level because you're able to just control so much more about Kubernetes. So, anyways, yeah, I think there's like really cool patterns to explore there.
Absolutely. I'm super excited for what's coming next for us here. There's so many very cool use cases for multi-cloud and um, yeah, it's I'm looking forward to, I mean, before KubeCon and after KubeCon to continue working on these patterns. So definitely excited.
Yeah, awesome, very cool. Okay, does anybody else have questions or comments about the Maintainer Summit or KubeCon or any of that stuff?
Um,
All right.
I
Oh, yeah,
want
please.
to maybe bring a small topic in here. So, Bridget, I know we worked a little bit on a Crow logo and we never really like settled down on one. And I was thinking as maybe, whatever folks prefer in here, we could either make sure that we have a logo before the migration and we can give CNCF the ownership of the logo, or we can like work on that after moving to the SIG Cloud Provider with everyone in there. So I was thinking like, hey, if we have a logo, we could have stickers for KubeCon. That would be really cool. Stickers and t-shirts.
Oh gosh. Um, didn't we decide that one of the birds was cute?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many logos that we lost. We even have a GitHub issue for this, but there was so many cool things. Maybe we should let Miko decide. But yeah,
Get
I
our
mean,
get our neutral
yes.
Switzerland of Red Hat to pick everything.
I think we could definitely maybe restart the thread about logos and see what folks think, and maybe we can propose three final logos and pick one from them. I definitely want to have come with some cross stickers to KubeCon. That's #1 priority, you know.
Sticker-driven development.
Yeah, I wasn't
Exactly.
forgetting you either, Bridget. I was going to come back to that topic.
Like it.
I have
Okay.
a question. If we ever like move to SIG Cloud Provider, say this week, and we don't have a logo, like, is there a service in CNCF that we can request like a logo or a design from, or can we just like own that process and just like give ownership to CNCF?
CNCF has a service desk that we certainly can open as a graduated project. Kubernetes is a graduated project, so Kubernetes SIGs can open service desk tickets. That said, sometimes CNCF, especially in the lead up to KubeCon, is very busy, so
Mhm.
we might not be able to get design support in the next couple months, just realistically. But yeah.
That's completely fine. We can own this as well. It's no big deal.
Cool. Yeah, and Bridget, I was not forgetting about the steering elections. I was going to come back to that. So why don't you tell us about upcoming elections?
Oh, yeah. So I wanted to let everyone know, especially folks who may be coming in from Crow and aren't aware that if you are participating in the Kubernetes ecosystem, one of the things that is interesting and fun to do is actually, and Elmiko did a great job here of authenticating with GitHub and then showing he can see right there, it says eligible. He is eligible to vote in the Kubernetes steering election. So you can follow the link and find out if by default you already are eligible to vote in the Kubernetes steering election. If you've participated a bunch in the KK and like Kubernetes SIGs area repos already, you might already be. You might not already be there. It ends up being like 50 contributions to Kubernetes over the last year, that sort of thing. But just so you're aware, the election time is when the Kubernetes organization in general votes for our leadership. And there are 4 seats open this time. And I actually just put a pull request in to fix the documentation on GitHub because it doesn't match the correct stuff here because it still says 3 because it's always 3 versus 4. There's 7 seats total, and every year either 3 or 4 get elected. And this year 4 are getting elected. So if you're thinking to yourself, I am active in the Kubernetes community and I would love to run, there is information here about that. So yeah, just be aware that the elections are starting soon. And back in I did put a link in the, if you go back to the agenda, you can check to see if you're an eligible voter. And you can also check and see how you become a candidate if you want to do that. And candidacy, you have until September 8th to file. And to be an eligible voter, voting will open September 10th, and there's links in there about getting a voter exception if you believe you should be eligible and you just, don't show up in the file because the stats didn't show it, but you have other work that maybe isn't being captured. So yeah. I don't know if anyone has any questions or thoughts about this, but I was an election officer helping run the election the last couple of cycles. And so we definitely saw a ton of people really engaged and excited and participating. And this is one way that either by running as a candidate or by voting, you can participate in figuring out who is going to help lead the Kubernetes project in terms of steering. I don't know if Almiko or others want to add anything about what they see in terms of the value of helping lead the project.
No, I mean, I think you've done a great job, Bridget. Like, yeah, I think I hope it's self-evident to everyone in the community, although maybe it needs to be explicitly said. But yeah, like our governance organizations help us keep this, whole project on track and help us like solve disputes. And, sometimes they may not be seen so actively as some of the SIGs or the people on the front lines and whatnot. But yeah, they do carry a very important function for our open source project and especially a project this large. So yeah, I encourage everybody who's interested to get involved with the elections, learn who the candidates are. If you feel, confident about, your skills and whatnot, propose yourself as a member of the steering committee. There's, this is an open source project. It's open to everyone, right?
Well
Okay.
said.
Yep.
Right?
Well, thank you. Does anybody else have questions or comments about the steering elections? Otherwise, I think I'm going to add another topic here.
Oh, excellent. All right, we have another topic coming on. And then I think one other thing we usually do during this meeting that Elmiko, when we're done with topics, can take us through is we do look at bug scrub and triage, just what's going on with test grid. So
Yeah,
that'll be the end probably after we get done with all of our topics.
yeah, that gives
But
me a thought too, but I'll bring it up when we go to bug triage.
great.
So I just wanted to kind of circle back around on the cloud provider Equinix deprecation. I'm still working through getting the emails and whatnot together for this. But as I'm looking at the work that needs to be done there, what we've kind of, we agreed to kind of bring it up to 1.34 Kubernetes status. And then at that point, that'll give us a deprecation cycle where we can say, okay, in 3 cycles from now, this will no longer be within the version SKU for Kubernetes. And at that point, it will be frozen and archived. But as I looked at the repo, and there's like some little work that needs to be done there, like fixing up the tests and kind of getting some PRs through to improve the GitHub like actions and whatnot. What I'm thinking is I'm going to try to start opening issues there and maybe engage the community, because I think these could be good kind of first SIG cloud provider type PRs and whatnot. Because what's happening in the Equinix cloud provider right now is that Equinix has announced the deprecation of that platform. They're not, they're gonna discontinue the use of that platform, and so this means that the cloud provider is no longer going to be needed. So we are going to freeze it and make sure that, for anyone who's currently running on that platform, and I think the platform is going to be alive until the middle of next year sometime. So for anyone who's running there, they could continue to upgrade their Kubernetes and they could continue to use Kubernetes through the end of that life cycle. But the problems that are happening in the repo right now don't necessarily require like an Equinix, you know, I guess, cloud account or anything like that. They're just like fixing unit tests and making sure that we can merge some of the PRs and that we can get things rebased to 1.34. Now, would it be nice if someone could test it on Equinix? That would be amazing. But I think at this point, we can probably engage the community, and especially people who'd like to get involved in the community, to help us, clean up the unit testing so that it's working properly. Make sure that we can update things like controller runtime and the Kubernetes dependencies and whatnot. And I think if we can get those done, that'll be a nice way for people who are interested in getting involved in SIG Cloud Provider, but maybe don't have a specific tie to a or don't have a tie to a specific infrastructure provider. This is like a way to get involved and maybe a way to do some really fundamental work that will help the SIG and help the community. So I just wanted to give people an update on that. I'm hoping to gather this all together into like a document that I can post to the Kubernetes dev mailing list, just so people, because we want to announce the deprecation and everything and that it's coming, so people know what's going on. So I guess, does anybody have questions or comments about that topic? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up. So that's the end of our regular agenda. And as Bridget mentioned, we do a bug scrub and triage at the end of our meetings. And I think that what I was thinking before was like, so right now we look through issues in KK that are tagged as SIG Cloud Provider to see what we haven't looked at since last time. And it looks like we're pretty much up to date here because we've looked at I think we looked at this last time. We're still waiting for input from the GCP providers on this top issue. But given that we're now going to be including Crow, and I guess this is we probably should have done this for API server network proxy as well. We might want to think about adding another line to our bug scrub triage here, if we feel that we need to look at things in the Crow project or in the API server network proxy, just to see if there are things that need triaging. I'm guessing this isn't a problem right now because probably the Crow repo is pretty well maintained about this stuff. And the KK repo is really where it's more of an issue. But I just thought it'd be worth mentioning. I don't know if anybody has thoughts on that or. And the similar is true for the test grid as well. I'm guessing we don't really have a test grid for Crow yet, or I don't know if we will or not. But at some point, if we start to get a CI signal for Crow against Kubernetes, we might want to investigate that.
I love the idea. I think we definitely want to be reusing some of the Kubernetes ecosystem when it comes to testing and making sure things are stable. I know we use a lot of GitHub Actions, and we were like thinking about doing Prow. Like a lot of folks in around the Crow ecosystem are familiar with Prow, but I'm just glad we didn't do it before. Like it's gonna be just like easier for us to go and work on the existing infra for Kubernetes. So I'm not super opinionated in there. If folks want to continue using GitHub Action, I don't mind. I don't know what's the policy around that in Kubernetes 6 projects, but definitely like open to adding more jobs in test infra to support Crow testing.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. I think the main thing is like, for us, the main thing is keeping up with the KK repo and the tests that might be blocking any sort of like Kubernetes release or whatever. And I don't know if Crow is necessarily in that critical path right now. I mean, I'm imagining it's not, but in the future, if it does get into a path where we have blocking tests or tests that might affect a Kubernetes release, then I think that's where we'd want to be able to see it here from the SIG view, just to make sure, nothing's breaking or anything.
That makes a lot of sense. I know like in Crow we use some custom libraries, but I was lately thinking that we could definitely like reuse some of the cube schema libraries that are already existing upstream. So maybe we can have tests against the features that happen in API machinery. We already use a lot of API machinery stuff, but I don't know like how we can integrate into that. But yeah, absolutely like open to ideas and increasing awareness around Kubernetes version compatibility and things like that.
Cool. Yeah, I think probably for now the big thing from the Crow perspective would be like, yeah, if Crow is being broken by changes in Kubernetes, those are things we want to know about. But like I said, like I know the Crow project is very healthy right now, so it's not really a concern from that perspective for me. We check these to make sure that we're not breaking Kubernetes and whatnot. And then, if we get there with Crow, then yeah, it's probably something the SIG would be interested in.
I
Okay.
do know that, just to add to this, like that Crow is trying to like stabilize a lot of the APIs that are impacted by K8s. For example, I mean, if you think about the recent work around the cell libraries, right? That's like what comes to mind immediately. And also, of course, what you mentioned with API machinery. I think it would be very nice for us to use Pro to get informing jobs on a test matrix on at least a few Kubernetes versions. Like not something we have to do immediately, right? But definitely something that we can start tracking. Because we anyhow wanted to get an end-to-end metric set up, right? For Crow. That was anyhow on the list for quite some time. So I can definitely see us using the infrastructure there.
That I'm like super happy to hear that, because like I think this is the kind of thing that gives users like lots of confidence in the projects, and I think it helps with the discoverability too. If users can come and they can see the test grid and they can understand what's going on, they know what Kubernetes it works with, they can see problems coming. Like I think it's great to hear that. So yeah, thank you. Okay, anything else before we wrap up here? I guess we'll take maybe 23 minutes of our day back or something. Going once? Going twice?
Good from
Okay,
my
let's.
end. It was
Yeah.
great chatting with folks and getting our community all talking to each other. Love it.
Cool, yeah. Welcome aboard, Crow. Thank you for joining us, and yeah, looking forward to the future here.
Thank you, folks. Have a great day. Looking forward.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Later.